Just a quick introduction from my side. I am moderating this fireside chat. I am Karan Desai. I'm one of the solutions architects at AWS. Before we go into anything else, let's just talk a little bit about your background and how did you and your co-founders join and come up with the idea of Bark?
I have two partners in the business at Bark, and I met my partners just by networking through events like this, and they had the idea for BarkBox, and we're looking for an operational partner. So I had previously been at Uber. I met Matt and Henrik, who are my partners. They had an idea to do a startup around dogs. I'm obsessed with dogs. I had 2 dogs at the time, and just decided to join up with them as their kind of third co-founder.
Since you're the three of you, what's the dynamic between you and the co-founders, and how do you decide to split the responsibilities between the 3 owners?
Sure. So we actually are super fortunate to have very distinct skill sets between us. So really well-balanced team and partnership. I handle most of the operational side of the business and the people side of the business. My co-founder Matt handles all of our marketing and our so marketing and growth, technology and finance are areas that he oversees, and then our third partner Henrik oversees all the creative aspects of the business. So whether it's advertising or product development, he manages all of that.
Nice. And so you said you met them and you came up with this idea, and a lot of people come up with these ideas, and sometimes a good idea just stays at that. It just stays as a good idea. So what is it that struck you the most? How did you know that BarkBox is going to be more than just a good idea? It will be a successful startup.
I think we thought we were the only people who were like really obsessed with our dogs, and that this would be a product that we would just use and maybe a couple of our close friends. But as soon as we started talking to people about it, we realized that everyone was obsessed with their dogs. Everyone wants to spoil their dogs, talk about their dogs, spend more time with them, and really, as we started sending products out and people were sharing it on social media, it's like people want to interact with dogs more on the internet than babies. And we really we're at the beginning of that wave of people sharing a lot on social media, the stuff that they were getting and interacting with. And we didn't expect that at all. We didn't expect people to be as crazy about their dogs as we were. And when we started seeing that, we knew that we had something.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, speaking of early days, let's talk a little bit more about it, right? So when you started, when was this, and what did your first 6 months sort of look like when you started from zero and your initial growth phase?
Sure. I actually saw one of the questions on the board was how did you get your first 20 paying
Yeah.
customers? So we were really, we didn't even build a website. We made like a little mock-up landing page. We were showing people on our phones, showing our friends and family. And we had a little square. So we would go around to friends and family, show them this idea, told them that we already had plans and had the idea of how to ship it, which we didn't have any idea how to ship anything, and got all our friends to sign up somehow and give us their money. That was probably the first 30 or 40 customers that we conned into signing up. But we ended up delivering on the promise, and it became real after that. So it was really just talking to friends and family, getting them engaged with the product. A lot of them are still subscribers and big advocates for us today, but those became the base of customers that we built Bark on, and they've been telling friends and family and anyone that can listen ever since. Our biggest advocates.
Yeah, so it's organic growth mostly.
Yeah, mostly that, and a lot of, like I said, it's very natural for people to share on social pictures of their dogs. It is for me, anyways. I just crossed 1,000 Instagram followers today, which
Yeah,
they're
maybe
all
a lot more.
dogs. Actually, I was like, who are these people? And it's actually only dogs. So maybe I'm the only one who sees dogs on the internet, but I'm pretty sure most people do now.
Speaking of the early days, do you remember what did your actual day one look like? Like, what is it that you did at the very start?
I think at some point when we had sold all of these, fictional Bark boxes to people, we realized, okay, we actually have to do this now. We actually have to get product, put it in boxes, and send it. And we did it all ourselves. Probably for the first 6 months, we would invite our friends, coax them in with beer, wine, and pizza to help us pack boxes in a tiny conference room. And I think it was probably for the first 1,500 customers that we did that. And finally, our friends were like, you need to stop doing this and get a warehouse. But we really we solved problems when they arrived. We didn't start thinking, okay, how do we do this when it's 100,000 people? We were kind of solving challenges as they were coming up. And that in that first 6 months, everything unexpected will always come up, and you have to kind of solve it as it comes to you.
So, speaking of unexpected things, can you share some interesting anecdotes or stories that you remember about, like, what were some of these unexpected hurdles that you had to face in your early days of the startup?
One kind of funny one, in our very first month of packing boxes on our own, we decided to write Happy Holiday, handwrite Happy Holiday in the boxes. One of my co-founders is Danish and was spelling holiday with 2 L's, so we had packed all of the boxes and had to go back and like redo that. So that was kind of a funny early one. But I think a lot of the hurdles were really around um, figuring out which challenge to solve and when, and how to prioritize your time. Because I think when you start a business and you're a small team or you're a single founder, you're both the CFO and head of marketing and head of merchandising all at once. And figuring out what's the most important thing was always really important.
As you started growing your team from like just being friends and families who will come for pizza to having actual employees, what was the thing that really worked and did not work for you, like in trying to get actual full-time employees to join the team?
I think we have the benefit of, because we're a dog company, we have the benefit of it's a passion for many people across all different functions. So engineers who love their dog, marketers who love their dogs, merchandisers, customer service people who just are obsessed with their dogs. So in the very early days, it was pretty easy to find people who were excited to work on something they were passionate about and could kind of throw them in as utility players all over the company. Because, like I said, everyone's doing a little bit of everything in those early days, and it's really important to find people who aren't kind of too precious to go outside of their function.
And then when you started actually having employees and as you're scaling, how was the funding situation for you? Did you approach any VCs and did you have seed funding? How did that work out?
We are venture funded and have been since the beginning. We did do a small friends and family round in the very early days. I think we had the luxury of, my co-founders had started companies in the past and had been involved with VC firms in the past. So they were some of our very first calls, but we've had all of the same challenges that people have of you're splitting time between creating a pitch deck and going out and pitching VCs for money, which is the absolute worst experience if you've gone through it. And it's a distraction and it's hard for the team. But we always tried to focus on finding investors who really were bought into our mission and what we were doing and the customer that we were serving, and making sure that those were our partners, not someone who was just going to be a check that comes in the door. So that it's already really hard to go out and find investors. It's even harder to go find the good ones who are actually invested in your mission and are going to go out and be advocates for you to your customers and to other people in those financial markets.
Moving a little bit to your business model, so today we see there are subscription services from everything from food to underwear and socks and bed sheets.
I'm subscribed to all of them for market research.
So, what is it that you learned from other subscription services that came before you that kind of helped you shape what works, what does not work in the subscription service kind of model of startups?
We take insights and inspiration from all over the place. I would say some of the subscription services that we get a lot of inspiration from are actually ones like Netflix. So the things that they do around serving you content, or we're serving you products, but getting smarter about what you like every month. And that's something that we really try to do through BarkBox. We get a lot of inspiration from the way that Amazon approaches the customer experience and putting the customer first and just making it seamless. And specifically from an operational standpoint, we now have to ship things in 2 days or less, and always deliver on expectations there. We've listened mostly to our customers and where they lead us, and try to make sure that we're not just doing what's best for the business, but what's best for our customers. Specifically, because we're in a subscription business, it's all about the relationship. It's all about having it for a long period of time, and making sure that we're responsive to what our customers are saying to us, not just generally, but each individual customer and how we listen to them and how we serve them better every month.
So regarding that, there is this one statistic that really caught my attention was that you have a 90% retention rate on people who subscribe to the service.
90,
So
95.
95%
Yeah.
retention rate. So how did you get to this point and how do you retain that?
Sure. So it's something that has improved over time. I think every quarter we've seen improvement in our retention, and it goes back to what I was saying before. We really treat it like a relationship. We want to know your dog better than anyone else, and we want to be able to serve you better every month. One thing that's super important in how we do that is we've really heavily invested in our customer success team. So we have about 150 people on the team in New York, and we have about 250 people on the team out in Columbus, Ohio, which is where most of our customer service takes place. And not only do we encourage our customers to reach out to us about anything, whether it's a question about your order, but even if you just have any question about why is my dog doing this thing, or we're moving and we need recommendations on good dog parks. So they reach out to us for that, and we also we connect with them proactively to get more information about them and how we can serve them better. So we talk to close to 250,000 customers every month, and that's how we build and develop that relationship and retain customers for the long term.
Looking at the other side, right, the other 5% who do not or who cancel or abandon their subscriptions either midway or after trying out your product, what kind of tools or metrics like have you been using to track those? And do you know typically what are the reasons why your customers who do abandon do it?
Yeah, so we have a very customer friendly cancellation flow. Although we are able to collect quite a bit of information there, and if anyone contacts us directly, and all that information is stored in S3 and Redshift. That's how we're able to extract data on what's happening with our customers. A lot of times, sadly, it is because a customer's dog has passed away or is older, and no longer plays with toys. And the worst kind is when we are not serving them well enough with the toys or treats that we're sending out to them. So one thing that's happened in our evolution as a company is when you signed up 7 years ago, you could choose small, medium, or large, and we had those 3 options available and only 3 different types of boxes that we sent. Today we ship over 117,000 different custom boxes to our set of customers, and that's because we're trying to listen and basically not give you a reason to leave. So if your dog only wants to play with toys, we'll send you only toys. If your dog only wants treats, we'll send you only treats. If there's an allergy, so we've really used a lot of that, not only cancellation data, but feedback from customers to actually improve our product over time. So it still looks like you can go to the site and only sign up for small, medium, and large, but there's a lot of data churning in the background to get customers the right box.
Yeah, and also one thing I noticed on Variety is that you initially started with this one concept of BarkBox, and then now Bark as a company has expanded to multiple different products or services that you offer. So how did that diversification happen? Did any of that, was it like pivoting from an initial idea, or was it just all growth? And how did you come across moving from one product to a variety of different services and products?
So we have BarkBox, which is a subscription business. We have a new subscription business called Super Chewer, and again, that was from years of feedback of customers saying that their dog ripped the toys up, or that they weren't tough enough. They had a pit bull or a chihuahua with a strong jaw. We heard that feedback for years and years and didn't have a way to serve them. And after listening to our customers and following that path, we decided to launch this new product. So a lot of times it's listening to feedback and what our customers want, and then serving them the right product for them. So product being the right delivery method. So do they want to buy products a la carte? A lot of customers were asking, I got this great treat in my box. I want to be able to buy them again. Where can I buy them again? So after about a year of hearing that, we decided, okay, we need to launch an e-commerce site so that people can buy products a la carte. So really just listening to our customers and the path and journey they wanted in order to serve their dogs better, led us to starting a lot of different business lines.
So it looks like your growth and your retention and basically the success of Bark has been mainly focused around listening to customers and doing what they want. So with this much large amount of feedback coming from customers in different forms and various different methods, do you have some tooling or mechanism of like how do you collect all of that, clean it, and use all of the data? Like what would you recommend if someone wanted to do something like that on their own startup?
Yeah, so data, so we use S3 and Redshift to store all of our data, and our data team synthesizes everything out of there and spits it back into the company in various reports. But it comes in from all directions. So we use Zendesk for customer interactions. So all the information that comes in from Zendesk when a customer talks to our customer service team. We have product surveys, and all of that information gets stored and put in Redshift as well. And then we're matching product surveys with customer interactions and with their dog information. All of that basically is being used to plan better, to serve better products, and to interact in a more smart way with customers every time we talk to them.
So it looks like even at 7, 8 years now since you started Bark,
8 years.
yeah, 8 years later, you're still in a very innovation phase and like constantly coming up with new ideas. So how does that work internally? Like, where does this innovation come from? And, what is the internal process of where an idea starts and basically transforms into an actual business product or service? Like, what's the typical flow like internally?
It's different every time. Um, we we just like to do cool stuff, and we don't want to ever stop innovating and change, serving, surprising our customers. So we always take time to think of new ideas and how we can improve our existing ideas, and making sure that the team has time and space to do that. So I would say that a lot of the ideas come from these customer insights that someone on the team is hearing and is surfacing to us. And it starts as a small idea. We try to be really nimble and non-bureaucratic about the way that we take that small idea and come up with a really simple test to validate it. It always needs a champion. It always needs someone who's super passionate about wanting to try something or wanting to test a thesis. The people within the organization who are able to hear a customer insight and come up with the idea of how they want to serve a customer better, we always kind of find a way to support them and get them the resources and the time that they need to be able to actually test stuff, because it's the only way that we'll come up with stuff quickly enough.
So in this kind of business where you are in e-commerce, typically you find that once you reach a certain scale, it's difficult or almost impossible to handle all of these things manually, right? Considering the scale at which you operate now. So what kind of automation or tools do you guys use that helps you in this innovation cycle or even in day-to-day operations, in addition to just people being passionate about dogs?
Yeah, I guess we use all sorts of shortcuts to make stuff easier. Every day, you want to know how your business is performing, the health of the business, how customers are interacting with your product. So whether it's reporting that we get from our growth team that's automated, that says anything, health of new customers, where customers came from, what channels are working for us, what our retention rate is, how many people canceled yesterday. But we also use tools for how are people interacting with us on social, and what's our engagement like, and is that dropping, and are people seeing what we're putting out into the world. So a lot of the automation that we do is around the reports that we get to be able to make really quick decisions on the business, and how we're going to grow it, or how we're going to change something that we're doing to be able to serve people better.
So I have two interesting questions about the pricing models that you have. So let's take the first one is how would you recommend, how should you be pricing the subscription or the products? Like, do you base it based on what your costs are plus your profit margin, or do you do it based on what the market is going to bear, or is there a different statistic that you use?
So we test pricing all the time, and we've always taken the position that it should be, we want it to be a premium product, but we also want it to be reasonable in the market. We want it to be, the market should be able to bear it. Otherwise, you're never going to sell it, and it doesn't matter. And if you can't get your costs in line with that once you're at scale, then maybe you don't have a business at all. But I will say that for the first couple of years, as we were starting to get scale and start working with vendors and start creating our own products, we were basically wrapping dollar bills around the box, because we weren't at scale enough to get products at the price that we needed, but we knew the threshold at where we needed to get there, where we needed to get to be able to become have a healthy gross profit on the box and be able to scale the business. So pricing, really, how we view it, should be what is reasonable within the market.
And then now, since you have expanded beyond the BarkBox to also the e-commerce side of business, what do you see is your split in terms of like revenue? Like what comes from BarkBox versus what comes from subscription models in percentage split?
Sure. Today, about 70% of our revenue comes from our subscription boxes, so BarkBox and Super Chewer. We also have a wholesale business. So we used to buy products when we were just getting started. We were merchandising products. Then we realized that we have all of this data that our customers are sending about what products they love, whether it was technical data or what characters they really loved. So actually, we started to create products on our own. We now create over 430 products a year. But we realized that we're actually the best toy maker in the dog space, and we have the most information, and that was really attractive to retailers. So about 2 years ago, Target approached us to basically merchandise their pet section, their toys in their pet section. So now we have that is a pretty big and growing business as well. So that's about 10 or 15% of our business. And then we recently launched on Amazon. So taking the same information about the products and the platform of Amazon, what customers are searching for and needing, and creating products that fit for that channel.
That's great, the growth that you've seen. And speaking of which, what's coming next for Bark? Where do you see yourself like in the next year or 5 years expanding into other lines of business, new markets? What do you see coming next?
I think we'll do a bit of both. I think we always want to find new channels to put our products in. I think we think everyone loves their dog, and we want to be able to serve them across all sorts of channels. So again, whether you're an Amazon shopper or a Target buyer, or you want to sign up for a subscription, we want to be in a lot of different places and be really smart about that. But the way that we think about growing and expanding is within our product line. So we're really great at toys. We are pretty good at treats and getting better. We're really interested in some hard goods, as well as like health and wellness. The health and wellness space, we think, is growing really quickly. So you'll probably see us in the next year or two, expanding into a lot of those categories, as well as just continuing to push the envelope on play styles with dogs, because that's kind of we've always been built on kind of this kind of fun interaction with your dog, which really starts with toys and treats and how you spend time with your dog.
Do you see ever yourself moving from dogs to also covering other pets or some other lines of business?
No, never any other animals.
Sorry, all cat
I've been getting
lovers.
that question for 8 years, so I'm very used to it.
Okay. So, as you're growing and expanding into all these lines of business, we talked about some challenges that you faced in your early days. You had to hustle and do all of those calling friends for pizzas. Now, as an 8-year-old company, what are the kind of challenges that you see now that are either different from what was on early days or are still similar from the early days?
The challenges are bigger and higher risk, and harder to answer. There's usually when something surfaces up to my desk, there's not a right answer. So it's really weighing the pros and cons of whatever solution you decide to come up with. I was thinking, I just got out of a meeting about we're changing warehouses again. We changed warehouses last year, and that was a disaster. We have to do it again this year. So things like that. The problems and challenges just get a little bit bigger, a little bit higher stakes. But fortunately, when you're at a certain stage, you're surrounded by people who are way smarter than you, who are way more equipped to make these decisions, and you just have to kind of empower them to go and make them.
So, one more thing that we see a lot of audience wants to know about is when you initially started, how difficult was it to like come up with the right mix of what products and services you should actually be serving, or rather what you should be putting in your bark boxes, and how do you decide what, for example, you make in-house versus sources from different sources? Like, What's the logic there, or what's the thinking that went around, like deciding what's the right thing that goes out to the customers?
Well, we had to start somewhere, and we started with what would we want to get in the box and who is willing to sell products to us. So after sending the first box, we talked to every single customer. We got feedback from every single customer about what we had sent and what they would want to see in the following box, and continued again just in this trend of listening from the very beginning. There was one point in month 4 that we sent all the stuff for your dog, but also a T-shirt for the human, and like the customers rejected it. They didn't want anything for humans. They bought this for their dog to spoil their dog. Don't send me anything for myself. And we haven't sent anything for humans ever since. So a lot of the merchandising comes again from experimenting and testing. And now we have such a large customer base that we can carve off a few thousand people to send them something, to test something and get their feedback more directly, make them feel like they're involved in this kind of experiment of getting their dog the best stuff. But now we have a big merchandising team and even bigger product development team. I think there's roughly 20 people creating products on any given day in our office, creating toys and just experimenting and testing with everything.
So, in terms of experiments, I saw you coming up with something called a Bark Park. Which can you talk a little bit more about it? What is it, and what are the plans for that?
With BarkBox, we created like this hour of time that you get to spend with your dog and your family. You're opening this box, like the dog knows it's coming. They've learned after month 2 that it's for them, and it was creating this moment and this interaction where dogs and their people were able to spend this time together that they didn't previously have. So we've always been kind of obsessed with creating these moments and creating these experiences where the dog is the focus and the experience is built around what the dog wants. So we had this idea to rent out, or no, I'm sorry, we didn't rent it out. We built a dog park in Nashville where we have quite a few customers. We made it a membership-only dog park, so it was a little bit like Soho House meets like really cool dog park. There was a coffee shop. It was programmed. There were all sorts of like dog comedians and Wi-Fi, and we sold dog toys and things there. We made it a membership so that people could go and have this kind of premium experience with their dog. They could sit there and do work. There was all sorts of benches where you could work all day. And again, just creating that, I think it's called third space or fourth space or something, where like you and your dog can't really do much besides like go on a walk, maybe go to the dog park, maybe sit on the couch and watch TV. We wanted to create something that was a little bit more elevated than that, that you could still really enjoy time with your dog in a place that was a little bit more unexpected, and also interact with other people who are also equally as obsessed with their dog. That was a 3-month test that we will potentially bring back a few times.
Okay. So, in terms of your products itself, going back a little bit into it, what goes into deciding the buy versus build decision? Like, when do you decide to make in-house versus buy from outside vendors?
We at this point now make almost everything. We partner, obviously, so we're not making the treats ourselves, but we are heavily involved in the formulation and the recipes, and obviously all the packaging. But I would say that at this point, if you receive a BarkBox, pretty much every toy in there and treat in there will be something that we produce ourselves.
And what is it that led you to go completely into into like making your own versus buying from outside sources? What were some metrics that you considered?
So what I was mentioning earlier, we just realized that we actually have such good data on what our customers want, and we wanted to put that to use. But the other thing is just the reality of dog toys in general is most dog toy companies, they'll come up with one line of products once a year. It's not like fashion or anything where they're producing a lot of products. We had a need to produce 20 products a month, and there are very few companies, there are 0 dog toy companies that do that, and we're able to serve us in that way. So we started doing it on our own.
It was more out of necessity.
It was a necessity, but we've realized that it allows us to tell stories in the box that are the other kind of big thing that makes it an affinity, not just for the dog being obsessed with getting spoiled, but for the human is that we're able to make these like very technically sound dog toys, but that are really funny and enjoyable and tell a story and an entire experience that makes it hard for the human to not chuckle as well.
Let's talk about the humans of your company for a little bit, right? So, what have you found is what kind of talent is the most difficult to recruit out of all the people you have at Bark, and what are some of those challenges that you've run into?
It's kind of a self-selecting group, people who are excited about working at a dog tech company. So we have a lot of people. We have a lot of inbound across all of the functions. At the current moment, I feel like everyone wants to say engineers, but actually we have a pretty great flow of candidates on the engineering side. I think I don't know, finance. Finance is a tricky one.
Yeah, yeah. Even in New York.
Yeah, because you don't want like banker finance. You want like operational finance. No
Yeah.
offense if anyone's a banker out there.
So, the one side of it is finding the right people. The other side is also having a constant revenue flow. So, in terms of that, what are you currently looking like? Are you profitable just by your regular business? Are you planning to have more rounds of funding, or maybe have an IPO, go public? Like, what are the plans in that direction?
We're profitable. We'll be profitable this quarter. We had a couple profitable quarters last year. We still have a ton of growth in front of us, and like I mentioned, we're launching a lot of new businesses. So a lot of the times we choose whether or not we want to be profitable or not, which is we feel very fortunate about. We actually haven't raised venture money since May of 2016, which has been nice to not have to go out and do that because our business it's recurring revenue, it's cash flow positive, and we're able to make decisions based on what our cash needs are. And I think subscription is really fortunate in that regard. But I think our plan is to continue on the path that we've been on. We're relatively conservative when it comes to growing. I think oftentimes see a lot of e-commerce company who've either flamed out or spent a lot of capital and not necessarily got the outcome they wanted, and that's something that we definitely want to avoid. So we're pretty conservative with the way that we manage the business. But there's still a lot of growth out there for us, whether it's in the US or internationally or in some of these other businesses that we're going to continue to kind of invest heavily in.
So, in terms of the products and the innovations that you're doing, so we have been seeing a lot more of connected devices and internet-enabled gadgets and toys and devices out in the market. Do you have any plans of going into the IoT kind of market to have like connected toys or gadgets or anything like that?
Not currently, not that I know of, but that's not necessarily my wheelhouse. So maybe they're working on something crazy that I'll support, I suppose. One of the things that's always been like kind of important to us, and maybe this is like bad when you're thinking about customer experience, if we wouldn't use it, then we don't often get passionate about building it for our customers. And that's one of those ones where Matt, Henrik, and I, none of us kind of use those connected devices for our pets. So
Okay.
I don't know if we'd ever endorse doing it.
Let's go a little bit, just a couple of technical questions around here for the from the audience as well. So, you have been partnered with AWS. You built your services using AWS. How does that play a role in BarkBox, and what kind of AWS services have been using? If you want to just speak a little bit about that.
I'm supposed to caveat this by saying that I am not that technical, but I do know a little bit about what we use and how we've used it in the past. I think one of the most important things about using AWS is it allows us to move really quickly and nimbly. I've also been able to defer hiring a DevOps person for the last 7 years because we're able to really leverage the service and the team that you guys provide. So I mentioned S3 and Redshift before, so all of our data coming from every single source, and then being spit back out to our product teams to make decisions on, our digital product teams to make decisions on customers going through our workflows. Our finance team gets information and data from there. We use CloudFormation. I'm going to mess this one up. Elastic Beanstalk, is that one?
Yeah.
Lambda is another one that we use. And all of these, I'm pretty sure we just like adopt everything that you guys give us because it allows the team to move super fast and nimbly in a way that if we were to basically build it all ourselves, it would just take endless amount of time, resources, and more importantly, it would take us away from being able to focus on what we can do for our customers more directly. So
Yeah.
we've leveraged the service from day one.
And from what we talked about, it looks like you have a lot of data that's incoming from customers, and you guys are really big on like using that data analytics to come up with new product lines or deciding what to do next. So, do you have any suggestions or ideas that you want to share with the audience on like what's a good way to use data and how do you like do the data analytics?
I feel like I've said data like 1,000 times, and I'm sorry. I feel like that's so annoying. But we use it, and we listen, and we collect so many data points about everything. I would say that the number one thing that we focus our data science team on is making sure that we can not just look at like macro trends of what's happening with our customer base. So being able to identify that, but being able to use it on a more individualized basis. So the way that they're connecting that information of these, like, so when we do more broad-based surveying or broad-based things like retention is a very broad metric versus when someone says their dog has a chicken allergy, which is very specific, this one dog living in this city, making sure that we're able to apply the learnings not just on a macro basis, but get them filtered all the way down to the individual and have that translate into us just getting smarter about your individual dog every month.
Moving beyond AWS, just in general, we have probably have a lot of startup founders or people who work at startups here. So, what are some of the ideas that some business fundamentals that you would want to share with the audience here? Like, what goes into making a successful startup like yours?
I feel flattered that you've called it a successful business because I feel like it's challenging every day. I think making sure that you're working with really smart people that you trust makes it rewarding to solve hard challenges every day. That's what we found, anyways, in our team. And I think also I think what I was saying before is not trying to solve the problem of scale that's going to come years from now. I think it's smart to know that those challenges will exist, but not try to solve for them in that moment, because that's when you overbuild things or you get ahead of yourselves and you lose focus on what actually matters, and that's the customers you're trying to serve on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of that is hand-to-hand combat and investing in those relationships and realizing that you can't just be serving yourself or your business. You have to be serving your customers. And if you're not listening, you're not serving them, they're not going to be there tomorrow, and then you won't have a business. So I think that's always been important to us, is to make sure that we keep a pulse on what our customers are saying and what they want.
I'm just going to take a moment here and just open this up. If there is anyone in the audience who had trouble like submitting the question on Slido and would might want to ask a question directly, maybe we can take a couple of those.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
My name is Tony Moak, and I want you, if you can comment the pet food giant Purina's product, and do you want to build such kind of partnership with this kind of pet food company?
Yeah, so I think the question there was like, do you see yourself building a relationship with one or some of those bigger pet food companies, for example,
Yeah.
like tie up with them and like do some kind of a business with them? Like, what do you see your competition like?
Yeah, I don't know that we see them as competition necessarily. I think they do a really great job of food science and creating the best food for your dog. And I think the Mars of the world as well, who do things in Blue Buffalo, and those companies, they're really great at all of the being really scientific and smart around the nutrition of products, which is something that we have no expertise in. But we have a lot of expertise in how you create a great experience and reach customers directly, which they don't have. So I think the opportunity to bring those together is one that could be interesting for us to partner with them, use their expertise to bring high quality food to customers. So it's not something that we necessarily do today, but especially we send as many treats as we do toys. So as we start to think about treats and the nutrition that goes into those, we would probably be well served to partner with companies like that and how to do that best.
So the question from Eduardo here was initially when they had like 20 or 40 customers, what kind of hustle or scrambling did they have to do to like serve those first customers and grow from there?
Yeah, I would say the couple things that stick out to me were, how are we going to grow? How are we going to get more customers? And we tried everything. So we tried social, we tried email marketing. We had some friends who were running ad agencies and blew a bunch of money there when we shouldn't have. Don't do that in the beginning. And tried anything that would stick. Referral programs, tried to encourage our customers to give away free boxes in order to kind of recruit new customers. So we were doing everything under the sun, any idea. No idea was too stupid to try to grow and test, but really smart about having control around not just blowing the bank on in any one given channel without testing it. The second thing we had to do was actually fulfill the promise, actually send the product. So creating partnerships with vendors, selling them on the dream. They as much had to be sold on the dream as our customers did, because we said we're going to buy 50 today, but we're going to buy 5,000 in a couple months. So getting them bought in, getting, like I said in the beginning, we were actually packing the boxes ourselves. So it was really just like getting stuff delivered and then shipping it out. Once we became a little bit more sophisticated, it was finding that warehouse, making sure that they were going to take as good of care around it as we were, and finding the right person to run that and the right partner there. Again, it's every partner that we work with, every VC that we work with, every employee that we work with. It's a noticeable difference when they're bought into the vision versus when they're just doing it as it's just business for them. And we've always tried to make sure that we not only find those people and put the time in to find those people from the beginning, but also make sure that we show them love over the course of that relationship and partnership.
How exactly do you do your user research and user experience research when your users, who are the dogs, can't actually speak to you directly?
Put a little meter on their tail and see how much it wags.
Yeah.
We've actually done that before. It didn't really work. That didn't work, but we actually had like a weird pop-up over in Soho where we had all these toys around, and they all had these RFIDs in them. And the dogs would put on a vest that had like an RFID reader, and they would run around and play with stuff, and it picked up what they played with the most, and then it put it automatically in their parents' shopping cart on the app. The funny thing about it is the dogs would play with something, but then the parents would pick something totally different that they thought looked cooler.
Yeah.
But that was like one way that we actually could physically measure what dogs were playing with. Again, your dog knows it's coming for them. After the first month, they smell the box and they know it's for them. And like they'll just rip it to shreds in like minutes, and they're obsessed with it. And customers give us that feedback of what their dog really loved, and they tell us like very vivid, long explanations and stories of what their dogs loved and didn't love.
Mhm.
I've never met a group of people who love to share as much as dog parents love to share. And it's helped us. It's helped us every step of the way, really like make it better. And like the fact that they now have someone who can listen to them and all of the things that they want to talk about their dog, I think keeps them in this relationship for the long term.
Is your data and all the tech team and everyone who works, are they all in-house, or do you leverage any kind of outsourcing at all for getting outside talent? And if so, how do you go about sourcing them, and how is it working out for you? What's the pros and cons around that?
Sure. We have most of our tech team is in-house. The couple scenarios I can think of where we had outside help were for pretty discrete projects. So like we had a financial systems move from QuickBooks to NetSuite. It's very specific. It's kind of short term, although it's taking forever. So you get people who are experts in that, and you're not kind of saddled with a hire that may be not useful in a couple years from now. So we've always put a lot of emphasis on our engineering culture and the flexibility to move between different products that we offer, and basically continuous learning for those folks on the team. And that really strong culture has like made recruiting really easy for us. People want to bring in great people, so they're heavily involved in the technical community. So many of them are teaching at boot camp. So having a steady pipeline of junior engineers come in has been really helpful. And just them networking out and kind of spreading the gospel of our culture has made it pretty easy, not only to hire and recruit, but more importantly, to actually retain them once they're there. They really feel part of a community.
Yeah, so speaking about the culture, I mean, I would guess definitely there is the part about like being able to work at a place that's extremely dog friendly, and I'm guessing a lot of your employees also would have dogs, so that the work environment there would be pretty fun. But leaving the dogs part aside, like what are some other things that you think are unique to your culture that makes people come to you and like, stick around at Bark? So if I am building something that does not involve dogs, what
Yeah.
other things would you talk about?
I think it's because we have so many different opportunities at different sizes and scales, it really it fuels the ability to learn and try new things all the time. So, um, in any given day, I'll be working on BarkBox, which is a huge business at scale. It's got it's like moving a cruise ship. And then I can spend the second half of my day working on a super small business that's just about to launch or is just launched, and fueling that, both of those sides of that energy and both of those parts of your brain. Most people within the company get to think about both new stuff and scaled stuff, and get to kind of pick and choose the challenges that they get to tackle. And I think having those opportunities for people makes it really exciting and a place that you can stay for a long period of time, because when you get bored of one thing, you can move on. Although no one gets bored. People are obsessed with dogs and
Yeah.
dog
So,
toys.
speaking of the technology itself, there are a couple of questions from the audience around. You mentioned that you're using a lot of customer feedback and data that you gather, and then the analytics that you do. This seems like a ripe case for getting some machine learning or artificial intelligence kind of things
Yeah.
involved in it. So, do you see yourself doing that? Do you have any data science teams? Like, what's your thoughts around using all that data for doing more predictive machine learning kind of work?
We do have a data science team, and actually outsource. You asked me, do we outsource consultants? That's one that we do. We do some machine learning around predicting. We have this idea where before you actually get your box in the month, we'll ask you if you want to add something to it. So we started by just saying, here's this one product. Ask our entire customer base, do you want to add this thing to your box? Yes, no, and we add it or we don't. Over time, it's evolved into then we added a couple product items that you could add. Now it's we're using machine learning to basically create lists of people who are most likely to buy certain products, and making sure that we're matching them and sending that every month. And the way that we're able to use it, we increase the conversion on it like 500% just by adding machine learning to it and predictive analytics. So that's one instance that we use it. And I think specifically because we want to, again, right product to the right customer at the right time through the right platform, that requires a lot of data crunching. And we have a lot of resources pointed towards being able to do that in a really smart way, and not just do it in a really smart way once, but get smarter and smarter about it every month.
Yeah,
We have an opportunity, we have 12 chances in a year to send you better stuff. So
yeah.
that's kind of the fortunate part of our business.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'm just going to end this with one fun question here from the audience, actually. So it looks like in December last year, you did a movie tie-in with The Grange. So in the future, if you had to do like another movie tie-in, what would be your go-to movie be? Where would you like to see Bark kind of do a partnership?
This is a TV show, but everyone wants to do Game of Bones. We have a couple dragon toys that are actually our top performing toys, and that would be kind of a dream. I think we all love it. It's not as kind of like funny silly as we usually do, but I think we could make it funny.
Okay, so I guess we're going to see Game of Bones coming up
Game of Bones.
sometime soon. Thank you very much for coming here, Carly.
Yeah, thank you.